I said this yesterday on the show before the game. I'm going to say it again today, and I said it last week. Takes a while in the NFL. Got to get past Thanksgiving to figure out, okay, who's got it and who doesn't, who's faking, who's posing, who's a pretender. I think the Baltimore Ravens and Seattle Seahawks this morning, yesterday, and last week feels like the Super Bowl to me. It feels like the Super Bowl to me. And I think Baltimore and the Seattle Seahawks have a ton in common. They both have A-plus Super Bowl winning head coaches. They both have, and this is big in 2019, dynamic quarterbacks who sometimes can do stuff that a defense can't prepare for. They both are dominating running games. Seattle last night ran for 220 yards against that Viking defense. They can take the ball away from a Patrick Mahomes, from an Aaron Rodgers. And they're also very good defenses that added a piece. Marcus Peters for Baltimore solved a problem. Jadeveon Clowney, Quadri Diggs, the safety from the Lions. Everybody else has a hole. Everybody else has a hole. The Saints and the Patriots have 40-year-old quarterbacks that aren't athletically dynamic that you can scheme against, and there's nothing they can do. And the Saints and Patriots do not have over-the-top weapons. Texas, I don't trust their coach. Green Bay, finesse, I don't trust their coach. Minnesota, I don't trust Kirk Cousins. And Kansas City, like them a lot, but don't trust their defense. That leaves San Francisco. Well, I've seen San Francisco in the last month take on Seattle and Baltimore, and they lost to both because Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson simply made plays that even with a great coaching staff with the Niners and a great defense, there's nothing they can do. Lamar and Russell just do stuff you can't defend. And so it feels like Seattle and Baltimore, to me, are my favorite for the Super Bowl. And they also did something, and I'm going to use this term multiple times today. They identified their problems. This is very big in relationships. It's good in business. It's really big in football teams. Baltimore had a problem. They started the year 2-2. They lost to Cleveland at home. And they identified a problem. We want to be more aggressive on defense, but we're not good enough at corner. And they went to the Rams and got Marcus Peters. Baltimore identified a problem. We want to play this way, but we can't until we get an elite corner who can block out the sun on an opponent's best receiver. And Seattle identified a problem. They lost at home to Baltimore. They lost at home to the Saints. And they're like, we got to be more physical and faster on defense. So they get Quadri Diggs from the Lions, who's a small but ferocious hitter. Jadeveon Clowney takes a while to get into the system. They add Josh Gordon, an over-the-top piece offensively. And now both Seattle and Baltimore, who were good in September and October, but not special, to me are the two best teams in the NFL. Excellent head coaches. You may have the two Coach of the Year candidates, the two MVP candidates, two of the best running games, two of the most physical teams. And again, they both identified a problem. Excellent general manager said, we're not quite there. We want to play with a little more physicality and aggressiveness defensively. Seattle goes and gets a safety. Baltimore goes and gets a corner, and they've ramped it up. I don't think Baltimore and Seattle have the best rosters in the league. I think Minnesota still probably does. But this is what matters in the NFL. This is something I've talked a lot about in the NFL. Structure wins. GMs win Super Bowls. Coaches win Super Bowls. And in 2019, dynamic quarterbacks, I think Baltimore and Seattle will meet in the Super Bowl. And let me segue then to Cleveland. Freddie Kitchens yesterday, I said this yesterday too, he's fired. It's just not official yet. And he came out yesterday and said, I'm not bothered by it. I'm not fearful of my job, and that's great, but he's out of work, just not officially yet. And I think you could certainly make the argument you have to fire Freddie Kitchens because you have to save Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is not as good as everybody thinks, but is he really this bad? He was your number one pick. You got to fire Freddie Kitchens, right, to save your quarterback. Right now, Baker Mayfield is last in completion percentage in the NFL, last in passer rating, has an egregious amount of wide receivers. And it should be noted, I am not a fan of Baker Mayfield, but he's got to be better than this, right? He is currently the worst statistical quarterback in the league. But here's what gives me pause. It's a Freddie Kitchens issue, right? I just talked about how Baltimore and Seattle identified their problem. And so the feeling in Cleveland is, hey, we know what the problem is. It's Freddie Kitchens. Let's get him out of here. Or is the problem Baker Mayfield? I'm going to show you a stat. Last year, Cleveland had a very easy schedule at the end of the year. And Baker Mayfield, playing the Bengals twice, was able to mask his mediocrity through elevating his stats against the Bengals in 2 games. This year, similarly, Baker Mayfield's got an easier schedule facing backup quarterbacks late, and it's going to mask or at least elevate atrocious numbers. Here's the concern this morning. Is it a Freddie problem or a Baker problem? I want you to think about this. Baker Mayfield has, outside of maybe Minnesota, the best weapons in the NFL at running back and wide receiver. And we don't like Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins is putting up MVP numbers without Adam Thielen. Baker Mayfield has the best wide receiver tandem in the league, arguably, and the best running back tandem in the league. And his numbers are at the bottom. We have bailed on Mitch Trubisky, who doesn't have nearly these weapons, and who's won a division, and we've bailed on Trubisky. We don't like Kirk Cousins, and he's got MVP-level numbers. Is the problem Freddie Kitchens, or is it Baker Mayfield? Because with outstanding weapons and with 3 different coaches, it's not just a Freddie Kitchens issue. He had Hugh Jackson. He had Greg Williams. Here's Baker Mayfield's career against winning teams. Folks, this is not a starting quarterback in the league. 4-11, 59% completion percentage, 20 TDs, 23 picks, and a passer rating of 75. Cocky, small, marginally athletic, increasingly erratic with his accuracy. Look around the league to the next stars, look and play like Baker Mayfield. Identifying your problems in a relationship, a business, or a sports team are crucial. Baltimore identified theirs in September, went to the Rams and got Marcus Peters. The Seahawks identified theirs. We're not ferocious enough. Pass rush, Clowney. We need a big hitter in the back end. They went to the Lions. And another over-the-top receiver, Josh Gordon. What's Cleveland's problem? Is it a Freddie Kitchens issue, or is it a Baker Mayfield issue? I don't want to hear about Sam Darnold. He doesn't have elite weapons. He doesn't. You're talking about the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns have the best perimeter and running back weapons in the National Football League. You don't like Kirk Cousins, and he's putting up MVP numbers without Adam Thielen. You don't like Trubisky. He's higher rated and won a division. Baker so far with 3 coaches and great weapons is an absolute disaster. Are we sure the problem's Freddie Kitchens? Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.